For any creative artist, the best starting point is always to imitate the things you love. Usually these early efforts are deeply embarrassing and things we're quite happy to never let see the light of day again. My own first schoolboy composition, for example, mashed up bits of West Side Story, Rhapsody in Blue, and some pop song I remember used a vaguely exotic modal scale. But for most of us, these early efforts don't lead to overnight international success, much less do they become part of the standard repertoire of orchestras around the world 100 years later. But amazingly enough, this is exactly what happened to Shostakovich, who was just 18 when he wrote his first symphony. The piece was actually written as a graduation piece for his studies at the Leningrad Conservatory. It's possibly the youngest age for a composer of a piece that has become part of the standard repertoire, even including more famously precocious composers like Mozart, whose early works aren't regularly played in the way this one is. The achievement is even more remarkable when you consider the scale of the symphony. This is a fully fledged piece that, as conductor Mark Wigglesworth describes, covers all the trademark musical gestures we would come to associate with the composer in later years. Nervous tension and sarcastic wit, passion and intelligence, contemplation and action, nobility and banality, all expressed with an economy of means that is simultaneously subtle and direct. But what I find particularly fascinating is how, alongside these clearly mature traits, you can also sense that young composer finding his voice, imitating the best composers around him. As you listen to the piece, the ghosts of other composers drift in and out of view. Not just Russian compatriots like Stravinsky, Prokofiev and Tchaikovsky, who are all there, but further afield, hints of the late Romantic sounds of Mahler and Wagner, and hints toward more forward-looking contemporaries from Central Europe, the muted cellos and chamber music textures of Albanberg's Wozzeck and Schoenberg's Piero Lunaire. You might even detect the influence of Shostakovich's work as a silent film accompanist in the quick cuts between sections and in the tendency to expressive extremes that the piece has. To me, what holds it all together into a coherent piece of music is a feature that would go on to become a key aspect of Shostakovich's style, the focus on a very small quantity of thematic material, that economy of means that Wigglesworth talks about. Take the first movement of the symphony, for example. The surface texture of the music chops and changes. It feels almost collage-like the way one colour rubs up directly alongside another. But in terms of the actual musical material used, the movement maintains a laser-like focus on the two principal themes, which one commentator described as a cheeky march and a teasing waltz. So that despite the surface changes, there's a huge sense of unity throughout the whole movement. Now, we're always being told that the older Shostakovich was forced to tread a tightrope between his own artistic desires and the strict party lines on artistic styles and approaches that were considered acceptable under Stalin's terrorizing rule. But in this amazing work, we hear how much of Shostakovich's voice was there from the outset. All the dichotomies we're used to hearing in his later works between the unified and the fragmentary, between the personal and the parodied, and between anguished emotion and sarcastic wit. All of those are here in this, his first major work. Not bad for an 18-year-old.